I went to Stirrup Elementary. I went to Ruben Dario Middle School, graduated from Core Park Senior High. I didn't go to all the cool private schools. And he's like, there's nothing wrong with that, right? You work at a gym and that's great, but what's your plan, bro? Like, are you gonna own the gym? Or like, what are you gonna do? My neighborhood, right? There's an old Biggie line where he says, on my block, you either slang crack rock or you got a wicked jump shot. That's so sad. Are you familiar with George T. Baker?
You're hanging out with the crew of Demon 305, and we have the pleasure of speaking with Commissioner Roberto Gonzalez. Thanks so much, man.
No, thank you for coming
out with
man.
us.
Thank you. I'm so proud of you guys, man. I see everything you guys are doing and how you're, bringing politics to the community. Not only politics, but just like, things that is on everybody's mind. It's really admirable, man. You're getting a lot of people involved. I think that's really important.
Thank you so much, man. We met when we had just started the company. Amazing to see both of us thriving.
Amen, sir. Amen.
We want to get to know you a little bit. We see you around. I think sneakers are part of your brand.
Yeah.
And now, right, everyone kind of knows the cool commissioner with the sneakers, right? Tell us a little bit. Where does your Miami story begin?
Man, look, I went to Stirrup Elementary. I went to Ruben Dario Middle School, graduated from Core Park Senior High. I didn't go to all the cool private schools, right? I'm just a regular Miami guy, man. I went to Ruben Dario Middle School the year they beat up a kid so bad his eye came out of his socket, right? And the reason I say that story is because I'm literally not supposed to be here, dude, right? I'm not supposed to be here. So it's really a blessing to be able to be in a position where I can help out, kids that grew up in the same neighborhood I did.
So that means you're a little Nika? You're a little Nika in you?
So I'm actually Guatemalan, but because I grew up in the Fontainebleau, Sweetwater area, right? Most of my friends are Nika, Cuban, Peruvian, Dominican. Yeah, man. Love Nika food though.
So you grew up in this neighborhood, and how did you know you wanted to maybe pursue school? Because that usually doesn't really work out at times, right? So how did you know, at what point did you know I want to pursue higher education?
The first time I ever talked to anybody about what I was gonna do after high school was a week before I graduated. I go and I talk to a counselor. He says, hey, do you have any plans for college? And I was like, I have no idea what I'm gonna do, right? So he says, listen, there's an Army recruiter waiting outside. Go talk to him and see what he tells you, right? The Army recruiter was incredible, amazing guy, took me to Taco Bell, right? We talked about joining the Army. I really wanted to go that route for A or B reason, probably one of the only regrets I have in my life. I don't end up going to the Army. I ended up going to Miami-Dade College. So I go to Miami-Dade. I end up applying for St. Thomas University.
Okay.
I end up getting a scholarship to St. Thomas, and I get a bachelor's degree in literature and philosophy. And then from there, I was a personal trainer. I end up working at a gym called Gables Fitness in Coral Gables. So I get this one guy who's my client. His name was Nelson Diaz, right? And at the time, he was, probably top 5 lobbyist in Florida. He ended up being the chairman of the Republican Party in Miami-Dade. But at that time, he was just my client, right? I trained him every day. And then
you weren't really in the know-how of things, right? Maybe politically, were you?
No,
were you involved?
zero, dude.
Nothing.
Zero.
Okay.
I was a personal trainer,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
As a matter of fact, one day, I'm training Nelson, right? We just get finished, doing a workout. And he's like, hey, Rob, we finished working out. He's like, hey, Rob, I want to ask you a question, but I don't want to offend you, right? And what do you say when somebody asks you something like that, right?
Oh, shit, I gotta...
Yeah. And then he's like, is this what you're going to do with your life? And I'm like, what do you mean? I love my life,
Yeah.
right? And he's like, dude, you work at a gym. And he's like, there's nothing wrong with that, right? You work at a gym, and that's great, but what's your plan, bro? Like, are you going to own the gym? Or, like, what are you going to do? And that freaking punched me in the face, dude.
Yeah.
Right?
He tells you, hey, you know what? What are you doing with your life? Kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a humbling kind of experience, I imagine.
Super.
What was that thought process when you got home, or in the ride home to the house?
There's a quote that Steve Jobs used to say when he was alive. And the quote is that the greatest moment in a man's life is when he realizes that the great people that come before him are no different than he is, right? And I know that sounds very philosophical, but there's a lot of truth in that, right? That's one of the reasons why I wear sneakers, right? One reason is I'm always talking to constituents, I'm always walking around, I'm always talking to people, and so I wanna have comfortable shoes. But another reason is when I was growing up, I didn't know one person that owned a pair of wingtips. You get me? Like, people from my neighborhood didn't go to law school. And in my neighborhood, right, there's an old Biggie line where he says, on my block, you either slang crack rock or you got a wicked jump shot. That's so sad, right? That's so sad because, this kid could have been a CEO, right? But, in his mind, he thought, I'm either going to play basketball or I'm gonna be a criminal. It's so sad. You get what I'm saying? But when you really understand that there's no ceiling, that's when you can make it. And I think that that moment and what Nelson did for me is kind of let me know, brother, you could do anything you want in life. And that's exactly what I did. I went home, I figured out what an LSAT was. I took the LSAT a couple months later. He wrote me my only recommendation letter, ended up getting a scholarship to St. Thomas, graduated from St. Thomas, started my own law firm, and now I'm here.
So you take this huge risk. So now you have your own firm, and this is kind of where we meet, right? We ended up crossing paths, and you've made a huge jump now, right? You've made a huge jump. At what point did you know you wanted to be of service?
I end up joining the Republican Executive Committee, and I was the recording secretary on there, right? And I end up, helping people get elected. So after the 2020 election, instead of getting depressed, right, and not doing anything about it, I decided, you know what? Let me go out there and help people get involved. So I start this group where all I'm trying to do is get young people to get involved in politics. I didn't care whether you were a Democrat or a Republican. You need to get involved, right? If you're under 30, you're not voting. And that's not cool because your local government actually impacts you way more than your national government does. So you need to get involved. So I start this group, and first meeting, it was in somebody's living room. We had 20 people there, right? By the third meeting, there's a lot of influencers online that want to get involved in politics, right? And by the third meeting, we had 200 people there, right? There were Republicans, there were Democrats, there were independents, there were libertarians, and they just wanted to figure out how to get involved in politics, right? So I started doing that for a while. Then a lot of people started asking me to run for office, and I end up running for the Florida House, right? I was recruited to run, and I end up, putting my hat in the ring, and I go to run. And so I lose the election. I go on vacation with my kids, and I'm in a cabin. I'm outside, and I'm praying, right? And I'm like, God, why did you do this to me, right? If I was gonna lose, why would you make me go through this, right? And then I start thinking, you know what? Maybe it was just so I can get involved, and I could just show other people that are gonna do great things. And I'm like, you know what, God? I get it. And thank you for the experience. Bro, 5 seconds later, my phone starts blowing up. Pick up the phone, it's the governor's office. This is the situation in Miami-Dade County. This is what's going on. You're the guy if you want it. Who you want. And now I'm here. How do you say no to God?
That's amazing. What can we look forward to in 2025?
I think in 2025, we can look forward to a lot of live, work, play in West Kendall. We have a huge traffic problem all throughout Miami-Dade County. And if you know about West Kendall and you know about the Southwest, it's the best place to live in Miami-Dade County, but there's nothing to do. So if you want to do anything, right, it takes you more than 45 minutes to go shopping, to eat ice cream, etc. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So the more that we can bring work and play out to this side of the county, the more we're going to alleviate traffic. And I think we're going to see that. Are you familiar with George T. Baker? George T. Baker is a school where Miami-Dade County Public Schools will pay for your kids to learn how to get into aeronautics and become an airframe and power plant mechanic. Now, why is that important? You get in when you're in 9th grade. By the time you graduate 12th grade, right, high school, you are making $80,000 to $90,000 a year, zero student loan debt, all paid for by Miami-Dade County, right? Did you know that existed?
I had no idea. Thank you so much for your service, man.
Absolutely, brother.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, man.
Our pleasure.